Returning now to Uncensored is Mehdi Hasan, the editor-in-chief of Zeteo, who says his debate with those self-declared fascists was the most insane thing he's ever done. We've got plenty to discuss here, but let's start by reminding viewers what we're talking about.
My family lineage is settlers from the 1500s. So
you don't look very Native American to me.
I am Native American. Whites are Native Americans. What are you talking about?
You're not.
What are you talking about?
You're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
I think you could say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
Listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like... I should get the hell out.
Yeah.
In this video, Mehdi Hasan breaks down his Jubilee debate live on Piers Morgan. So Mehdi jumps straight into unpacking what was easily one of the most disturbing debates he's ever been part of. Sitting across from self-proclaimed fascists who openly said America is only for white people and literally told him to get the hell out. Like, that's not just ignorance, that's straight up authoritarian garbage being proudly worn as an identity. And Mehdi, as always, doesn't shy away from calling it what it is. Connecting those vile takes to Trump-era rhetoric and explaining how this climate of open bigotry didn't just appear out of nowhere. And Piers even pushes back a bit on Mehdi's use of the word fascist, but Mehdi's just gonna keep making a strong point on why it's absolutely the right word for what he faced. So make sure to watch to the end to see how Mehdi Hasan breaks down his Jubilee debate live on Piers Morgan.
Well, it was pretty shocking, a lot of that stuff. I mean, how much of it was of that nature?
Unfortunately, the vast majority of it, it's about hour 40 edited on YouTube. If people want to watch, I believe several million people have watched. The Jubilee format is very viral and buzzy and clickbaity and gets a lot of views. Unfortunately, a lot of it was that. I mean, Piers, you know me. I like a good debate. I like a good argument. It's why I agreed to do it. The idea of 20 to 1, I like those odds. But even going into that room and seeing those people as Trump supporters, as self-declared far-right conservatives, that should have been a sign to me. Which people proudly self-identify as far-right? That should have been a giveaway. But even I did not expect, and you know me, I've used the word fascist to describe Trump and his supporters, but even I did not expect this level of open authoritarianism, fascism, white supremacy, conspiracy theory, racism to my face as an American citizen, telling me that I'm not a real American, that America is only for white people, that I should get the hell out. That was deeply disturbing and shocking.
I mean, there's a difference between being far-right and a fascist. Do you accept that?
I mean, unfortunately, right now, it's all very grey in the United States.
But I would say that's part of the problem, is that because in the last few years, everyone has casually tossed around phrases like fascist, Nazi, etc., it kind of diminishes the reality when you see it, when they clearly are. Like, if you see an actual Nazi and you remember what the Nazis did, or you remember what the fascists did, actual fascists doing actual fascist stuff on a mass scale.
Yeah.
The reason I've always quibbled with you using that word for Trump, for example, is that I just think it trivializes what actual fascism really is. When I saw these kids, though, what I'm seeing is a complete breakdown in any historical knowledge to brazenly admit I am a fascist. You never mind the open racism you had to put up with, which was obviously contemptible. But to just casually admit in a sort of cheery way, I'm a fascist, it just said to me they don't understand what that means.
Man, this right here really shows why Mehdi just thrives in these moments. He doesn't just flinch when someone lobs racist garbage at him. He leans in and exposes what's driving it. He makes it clear that this wasn't just some random heated argument. This was hours of open fascist rhetoric, like people proudly calling themselves fascists and telling an immigrant to get the hell out. And I mean, he's spot on. This kind of confidence doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from years of Trump and his enablers normalizing this stuff. And Piers tries to downplay Mehdi's framing by splitting hairs between far-right and fascist, but that's kind of the issue. When you've got people literally self-identifying as fascists, does it even matter what you call them? Mehdi points out that the lines have blurred in the US, and honestly, that's exactly the problem. Folks are so emboldened now, and they're openly bragging about views that used to be said behind closed doors. And honestly, when you've got a room of self-declared fascists saying this stuff with a grin, it's way past the semantics debate. Mehdi's labeling is not just justified, it's necessary.
Maybe. I mean, or that they do understand what it means and they like it. And this is the slight problem. All of the polling shows, Piers, that the Republican base has become more authoritarian over the last 5-10 years, has become more open to strongman rule, do call Donald Trump daddy because they like the idea of a strong leader, have told pollsters time and again that they're happy for Trump to ignore court rulings and ignore Congress and take more power for himself, which he's done, by the way. He has defied court orders, has defied the Supreme Court. And look, we can argue back and forth about the word fascist, just like on Gaza, you and I have argued about the word genocide. What we can't argue about, and surely what you cannot deny, is that America right now is going through an authoritarian moment. Most political scientists and scholars of democracy are saying American democracy is in decline, is going backwards, is regressing. We are seeing a much more authoritarian approach to government. The Republican Party is enabling Donald Trump's worst excesses. Again, call them whatever you want, authoritarian, illiberal, fascist. And these kids, quote unquote, they're all adults, but yes, young Americans, sitting in that warehouse with me, I don't think they're just ignorant. I actually do think they're taking their cues from the top. They are saying this stuff because Donald Trump has emboldened them. These views, Piers, as you well know, you lived in the United States, these views have been around for decades. But they were said in private. They were said in people's homes. They were said on some weird internet message board. They've become emboldened to say this stuff out loud because the leader of the country says similar stuff out loud. When they say to me, I'm not a real American, I should be deported, denaturalized. I mean, Donald Trump, Piers, is openly saying that Zoran Mamdani, the Muslim American citizen candidate for mayor of New York, is maybe here illegally. Maybe we have to investigate his citizenship based on nothing. They sat at the RNC and held up placards saying mass deportations now. They didn't just mean quote-unquote illegal immigrants, Piers. That's become very clear.
No, but you know what's
7 months
interesting
into
is
this,
I
6 months into this
interviewed Joy
administration.
Reid the other day, right, who was obviously at MSNBC for a long time, and she started ranting away about Trump and the deportation stuff that's going on. I just said to her, okay, how many people did Obama deport?
Okay.
No, you know it's one of my favourite questions. But what was striking was not just that she had no idea, which she admitted. She'd never bothered to find out, even though people like me had been telling everyone the number for a long time, to expose, actually, I think, a liberal double standard on this. But secondly, she said, I don't care. She didn't care how many people Obama had deported, even though he's by far, pro rata, the biggest deporter of people in American presidential history. So, my question for you about this would be, okay, I don't happen to think Trump has been that authoritarian. I think he pushes the courts as hard as he can.
Why?
But then he reigns back.
He's defied court
The people that have been deported, where there was a big blow up and contention about it, they've come back and they're facing due process. That's not what an authoritarian does.
Not true.
He's cleaned
That's
up.
just not true, Piers.
Well, on the southern border, for example, I presume you would praise Trump for stemming the number of people coming illegally there, or would you not?
No, I don't praise somebody who tortures people in detention centres, and I don't think you should either. And you said a lot of things that weren't true. With regard to Joy Reid, who's a good friend of mine, I believe that what she meant... Well, I'll tell you in a second. Let me just deal with Joy Reid. I believe Joy was talking about not caring because it's not relevant. I mean, Joy can speak for herself, but that's my interpretation of what she said. It's not relevant. Obama, first of all, and you tried this gotcha on me, I've written pieces in The Guardian attacking Obama's deportation record. It was a very bad record. And I've been critical of Joe Biden's immigration record. I was on MSNBC attacking Joe Biden's immigration record for being too Republican-esque. But that is not relevant to right now, because when we're talking about deportations, we're not just talking about numbers at the southern border. We're talking about what ICE is doing in what's called the interior of America, in LA, on the streets of New York, grabbing people off the streets, masked agents with no badges, no IDs, unmarked cars, grabbing American citizens, doing racial profiling of Latino gardeners or customers at Home Depot, putting them in detention, disappearing them like fascist countries do.
So this is where Mehdi just absolutely unloads, and honestly, it's just hard to disagree with his framing. He's not just throwing out the fascist label for shock value, he's literally connecting it to real-world authoritarian behaviors, ignoring court orders, stripping people of due process, and literally disappearing American citizens off the street. Like, that's not immigration policy. And his point about these views going from fringe internet forums to proudly shouted in public, that's chilling, but just absolutely true, as you can see from the Mehdi debate. And Piers even tries his usual pivot, dragging Obama into the conversation to frame this as a both sides issue. But Mehdi handles that perfectly, calling out Obama's record. He's actually written critically about it, while making it clear that what's happening right now under Trump isn't just about deportation numbers. It's about masked agents in unmarked cars doing racial profiling while detaining people who are legally here. That's authoritarianism in practice, whether Piers wants to admit it or not.
When American citizens, veterans, a disabled veteran in LA, Piers, just disappeared off the street for 3 days. His family don't know where he's in. That is Pinochet Chile style.
But do you
stuff,
agree?
Right? I'm not saying it's the same, but I'm saying that is reminiscent. No, hold on, Piers. You had a long thing about. I just need to deal with your points, and you come back in. He has defied court orders. The Washington Post just did a study the other day of 160 lawsuits brought against him. They've defied 1 in 3 of those lawsuits. He hasn't given due process to people in El Salvador. People were tortured, Piers, in El Salvador. Kilmar Abrego Garcia talks about being sat on his knees all night long, being beaten, being deprived of food.
Well, actually,
you
a lot of people have said that's nonsense.
I did. You opposed George Bush. But it's not nonsense. People have, what are you talking about? Congress members have gone to Alligator Alcatraz in Florida and talked about 35 people to a room, drinking water out of the toilets that they have to do a number 2 in. You opposed the Iraq war. I assume you opposed Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib at the time. I don't quite remember. But this is torture. This is what Trump, the guy you say is not authoritarian, is doing. And he's doing it to American citizens.
Yeah,
he's doing it to American. Well, he's not giving due process to American citizens. He's chucked out American children out of this country
let me get
without
a question
due process just earlier this year.
Let me get a question in. Do you agree that undocumented immigrants in America who then commit a crime should be deported?
Yes.
Good. So then we got a bit of agreement on that. Do you agree that reducing the number of people coming over the southern border illegally from the many millions, depending what you want to report, you want to believe, 8 to 12 million is reported to have come over in the Biden administration 4 years? Do you agree that reducing
it's not 8
that
to 12 million? That's a bullshit. That's a nonsense number.
Well, how many
it's
do you
about
think
2
it
to
is?
4 million.
How many?
I think it's about 2 to 4 million. Is what the experts I talk to say 2 to 4 million.
Okay, so millions. Do you accept that reducing that to just a few thousand a month is a good thing?
Not if it ends the right to asylum, which is America's right under America's obligation, apologies, under international law and American law. Donald Trump. No, hold on, Piers. You can't just elide that. Donald Trump has ended the right to asylum effectively in this country. That is outrageous. It is illegal.
But he hasn't,
immoral.
though, has
Again,
he?
Do you support ending the right to asylum?
He has.
He has actually. He's ended the right to asylum.
You can still claim asylum.
No, that's not true, Piers.
You can.
That's not true. That is
can
not
still
true.
claim asylum in the United States.
ICE agents are picking up. Piers, no. In fact, not only can you not claim asylum at the southern border, you're being rejected, but people in the middle of asylum hearings in courtrooms in America, on camera, are being grabbed in the middle of their asylum hearings by ICE officers. Judges are calling this out, Piers. And I assume, again, you support a right to asylum as a British citizen.
I do.
The UK, the US, every developed country
I do,
supports
but I also...
a right to asylum. Donald Trump has ended that. And by the way, Stephen Miller is openly opposed to that. So there's no point defending people who don't want you to defend them.
I'm not defending anybody.
They're openly opposed to this.
I'm about to tell you that I think that I think the fact that we
both
agree...
to praise Trump's record at the border.
Look, I think
Trump's horrific record.
I think if Trump had stuck to deporting people who committed crimes when they're undocumented in the United States, that would have had widespread approval. I do not like this chilling sense of fear that everyone undocumented in America currently has because of the extraordinary work they do for the US economy. Never mind anything else. Never mind the humanity.
Not just undocumented, Piers. What about the legal? Hold on, not just undocumented. What about legal immigrants? He's detained green card holders. He's going after American citizens.
I don't think it's right.
They've set up a committee.
I don't think it's right.
So, you don't think it's right? Do you think it's authoritarian? You're not worried about the direction of travel in the US, where 2/3 of Republicans basically identify as authoritarians?
I think
where a majority of Republicans tell pollsters, we think Trump shouldn't follow the courts or Congress.
So yeah, Mehdi just really exposed what's at stake. This isn't just a border policy debate. It's about the government defying courts, gutting asylum rights, and fostering an environment where fascist rhetoric feels safe to shout out in public. He tied Trump's actions directly to the emboldened attitude, and the evidence he laid out makes it hard to dismiss. Piers kept turning it into a numbers game or dragging on Obama, but that totally missed the bigger issue here. This is about a dangerous shift in how power is being abused, and that's what made Mehdi stand out. He didn't just argue, he broke it down with urgency and facts, while Piers just leaned on deflection and false balance. It's a reminder on how easily bias can creep in when the focus drifts from the real issue. And speaking of bias,
are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.